Are we trying or are we
We
roll
are.
calling?
Please vote. We're waiting on, there we go.
It did clear.
Good. For the public's benefit, we've had a little glitch with the system so we're trying different things. So that's why sometimes it's taking a little bit longer. We have 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay. Next, we'll go ahead and begin. If I can ask everyone to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see. Captain Dampier is hiding back there in the back. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilman Arjona.
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Lord, thank you for the blessings you have showered on this community. Lord, thank you for the freedom you have given to us in our country, Lord. Lord, let this country be a beacon of hope for many other countries, Lord. Lord, I ask you to pour out your love, your blessings on this country. Lord, I pray for our freedom fighters who are in harm's way. Lord, give them your protection. I pray for our police department as they guard this community day in and day out. Lord, give them your protection. Lord, bless each one of us here today, Lord. Lord, thank you for the opportunity you have given to us to serve on the council. Give your wisdom and knowledge so that we make the right decisions which are useful to this community. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
So our first item this evening is a presentation from our Measure V Oversight Committee. If I can ask Holly to please join us at the lectern.
Okay, all right. Good evening. I have some other committee members here. I'm Holly Staub. I was the chair of the committee this year. We've got Chip Holloway, Nicole Harper, and Chris Hill also here. We have our report, little presentation for you. I'll say this a few times throughout, but for those who want to see the complete report, it is available online. You can get to it from the city's website. Where do I point this? There we go. Okay. So we are the Measure V committee. Measure V was a general use sales tax voted in to replace Measure L. It's a 1%, so that goes into the general fund. As part of that being voted into place, there needed to be an oversight committee. So we are that oversight committee. That committee goes appointed by the council and goes over these numbers every year, making sure that they're spent on what they were promised to be spent on. Okay. Sorry, I jumped ahead. I will do that a lot. So we prepared this report just like we have done for 9 other years. So this is the 10th year. The report is available. We draw the information from the city's annual financial report, which is also available online. And then we also have free roam with the city staff. So they help us a ton in understanding those numbers, understanding the books, and understanding how everything works. Like I said, the funds collected go into the general fund. Sorry, oh yeah, that's it. And the city staff does a wonderful job of tracking that. So even though they're in the general fund with everything else, they're marked separately. So it's very easy to pull those reports at any time of what the V numbers are being spent, or the V money is being spent on. You'll notice throughout these that it does mention Measure L. That was the predecessor, as we said. And there are still monies coming in on that, which is residual from people who owe back taxes, basically. So last year, I think it was about 15,000, I'm sorry, I say last year, this is also the fiscal year 21-22. So when I say last year, I'm talking about 21. And this year, we're talking about 22. So we're not talking this current fiscal year. So the 21 number was about, I think, almost 15,000, if I remember right, but this year it was only about 1,500. Again, there's the link to that. Okay, so as the taxes come into the city, this is a breakdown of the revenue that they see. As you can see, the Measure L and V is the largest chunk up there. That's very important for a lot of reasons. The other sales tax is any other sales tax we collect. Gas is obvious, and then other taxes, those are non-sales taxes. Okay, so there's that 1,200 from the Measure L that came in, about just over 6 million for Measure V, and that shows you how much the total tax revenue was. So Measure V is a pretty big chunk of that. Okay, so when these were voted into place, even though it's a general fund, it was promised that the money would be spent to go towards public safety and public works. I mean, public works is streets, infrastructure, bettering our city, for those who drive around and walk around, and public safety is the police department. The need for this came about originally at the beginning of Measure L. The city had lost a bunch of money from the state, but then over time, they continue to lose money from the state and things continue to become more expensive. So whether it's just the cost of repairing the streets, the cost of keeping up the sidewalks, or the cost of keeping up with, I don't want to say rising crime because that's not quite what it is, but dealing with changes in how the state deals with criminals and then how that affects our local crime climate, I guess. So, okay, so talking public safety, the Measure V money this year, or in FY22, covered about 60% of the police department's budget. And then Public Works, the way that Public Works works, so 60% of the city's general fund pays for those things you see up there, salaries, electricity, streetlights, and all of that. The remaining money is what covers 90% of the cost of maintaining the streets. Maintaining those streets is really expensive, so this money is very important to help out with that. This year, Public Safety, the police department, was able to use the money to purchase some new vehicles. 8 of the new Ford vehicles and 2 of the packed, the little electric Mustangs that are down there. Not only did this buy us new cars, but it's buying the new cars, as we all know, saves in maintenance of the old cars. So the cars that they replaced, I think they said were an average of about 6 to 8 years old, all with at least 150,000 miles on them. So having new vehicles is huge. And another added benefit, as I won't take up a bunch of your time talking about, but recruiting new people to come to town for any job is hard. Recruiting policemen to come to town is not unique, but recruiting them to come to town to drive a car that's 8 years old that they're going to spend their whole day in is hard. So having these new vehicles, having new equipment, modern equipment, makes it easier for them to do their jobs, makes it more comfortable for them to do their jobs, and really will help us recruit and retain good officers, quality officers. We have great officers, but we want to continue to get those. All right, so on to our city streets. So when this, about 4 years ago, if my math is right, they set a goal to resurface 77% of our streets using this money. By the end of FY22, they had finished 60% of that. So they're doing a great job keeping up with that, and that's even with being beat. I think they would consider themselves behind because they make goals to finish things and supplies don't get here. Outside companies come in and are working on the streets and getting in the way. So that delays the work that they're able to do. But even with those delays, they've gotten 60% of that work done. They continue to plan out quite a ways in the future. So they're planning very well on how to spend the future money and doing a great job of putting these projects together so that the money gets used can make the most effect, if that makes sense. They're not, we can't do this right now, so we'll just throw little bits of money here and there, and then the money's gone and you can't do the big projects. They're holding on planning these projects, seeing all of the work through to make sure they're done quality. As I touched on a little bit, they have had some delays in getting these projects done. So there is carryover money from Measure V every year. But one thing to keep in mind with that, this chart shows how much they budgeted, how much they spent. That percentage on the right is how much they spent of how much was budgeted. And then that bold number at the bottom is how much will be carried over from 22 to 23. That money's already spoken for. It says that on this, that carryover funds are already budgeted and have been spent on future and current projects. So there's no concern with, gosh, we're bringing in way too much money that we don't know what to do with. It's just a matter of planning that money out for future years so that it can be used effectively. And kind of to tie it up, we, as a committee, very much feel that this money is providing a stable and increasing funding source, and that as it has for 10 years now. And the city is very cooperative with providing the financial data, the details. We don't have any problems with asking questions. The information's all readily available. So we feel that the city is doing a great job of meeting their promise of how they would spend this money. That's it. Any questions?
Well, first, Holly, thank you. I'll give every member of the council a chance to ask a couple questions. I just want to highlight one thing real quickly for the public record, which is that, again, you're auditing fiscal year 21 through 22, and it's important to understand the carryover was largely impacted by COVID in this fiscal year, and that if we were looking at fiscal year 22, 23, which we just completed, Travis and his department absolutely spent like it was going out of style over the last 12 months, not in a bad way, but in definitely getting some of the massive projects like Ward, Franklin, and some of these other very, very substantial projects that have been completed. And Ward 2 hopefully is going to advance even faster, which is fantastic. But the key is to make sure that the public understands that the carryover, which would sound like something unusual, was largely an impact of COVID, because when you went through fiscal year 20 to 21 and then 21 to 22, we were just able at the end of 21 to start even getting projects or people back out to even begin to do road work. So that carryover occurred. That would be my only point, other than to say thank you again to the committee and for your time and efforts on behalf of the citizens. And I'll pass it to any of my council members, beginning with Mr. Gorman. Is there any comments or questions?
I'm always impressed, and I thank you for this and doing what you're doing. I naively assume that your committee will continue this for Measure P.
There's a separate committee for Measure P. They are already in work.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
Terrific. Thank you.
probably are happy to do our part.
I just want to thank the committee members for the work that you do. I know it's hard to volunteer time and to do this on your own, and it's a fantastic report presented tonight. I think the numbers represent the importance of Measure V to this community and how important it is, and I want to just tell you what a great job I think you did on putting this report together. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Ditto, I want to thank the committee for tracking the usage of funds and for an excellent report. So very thoroughly prepared. Thank you so much. And I like the spotlights which are given on each page. So that is very informative, highlighting things on that page. So thank you. Thanks for the committee. I appreciate that.
Thank you. What he's talking about, if you do go online and view the complete report, one thing we tried to do, we started it last year, was we shortened the report. I think we made it about a third of the size it had been previous years. We tried to make it something everyone wants to read, and it's easily readable. And one of the ideas that the committee had last year was we made these spotlight points that kind of pull out important things, and they're at the top and bottom of every page of the report. So they are very helpful. They kind of give you those little headline captions throughout.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, the same. I'll echo it. I do appreciate your guys' time. You're volunteered for it and stuck your neck out to spend your extra time. And I can't overemphasize the importance to the community of these committees. Ridgecrest is very, I won't say that they're unique, but Ridgecrest is very skeptical when it comes to giving away money, as they should be, as we should all be. And I think that you, Holly, and the entire team, you add a lot of trust, which is good. So I appreciate that, and thank you guys for going through all the hard work.
Thank you.
Yep, the only other comments I have about it is that I remember back in 20 and 21, talking with Captain Tucker about what he had to go through to get the cars rebuilt, like they were having to take them, get them remanufactured. And so that 150,000 miles was on top of a car that had already been completely remanufactured and rebuilt. So he was going out on his own, getting on websites, buying parts for cars to get them cheaper, then to getting the work done. Getting to the point to where we're actually able to give our very good police force the tools that they need to do the job that we need them to do in an ever-increasing, for police officers, society is getting a little more complicated, to put it nicely. And their job is getting much harder, usually made by bills from the state. So I appreciate all the work that you guys do, Captain. And I know that Measure V is a huge part of that. I can tell you that a lot of the questions that I get from the community are usually about money. They want to know about roads. They want to know about money. Where's my money going? And it's always nice to say, well, Measure V meets every month. Measure V tracks all that funds, and it pays for a lot of our police officers and roads. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So thank you again to the committee. Thank you for your time. Appreciate the report, and we'll just record the report as received.
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. Public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will not respond to any public comments, but may provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not act on any public comment section of the agenda and may not act on the item, and the public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. We'll have the phone number flashed on the screen for anybody who'd like to call in, and we'll go ahead and begin with any public comment from the floor. Hello.
Okay. Okay. My name's Judith Ward. Do you need my address or anything? Okay.
Fine, Judith.
I'd like to talk about and make a comment about your proposal to have our telephones cover, for you to hire a company that will use our telephones to track our,
Ms. Ward, that is on the agenda.
it is, okay, I
So it's
didn't have
not
a
something that
copy
would
of
be
the
in the public
agenda.
comment section. But
Okay.
we'll provide you an opportunity to speak at that time, absolutely.
Okay, I'll come back then. We'll see you later.
No problem, ma'am, thank you. Is there any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, I believe there's one public comment on the phone. Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is April, and I just wanted to state that I'm against the city using the Placer AI.
Ma'am, once again, that is an item which is on the agenda, so it's not appropriate for the public comment section. This is for items not on the agenda.
Oh, I was told it was going to be.
It is on the agenda, and when that item comes up, there will be an opportunity for public comment on that item.
Oh, so we just wait. Okay,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
will call back then. Oh,
Thank you, ma'am.
sorry. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, do I have anybody else on the phone? Caller, go ahead. I will come back to you, sir. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, a major consideration for future, let's say, EV-type vehicles for the city is considering to buy. There is now a major study into saline ion batteries versus lithium batteries. It is guesstimated that they are going to be better, last longer, and will cost half the cost of the lithium-ion batteries. And of course, this area has a lot of saline, so there's going to be a possibility of that industry coming here, maybe even doing evaluations, which would be a grant to look into. So I wouldn't go heavy on the EV purchasing right now.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Okay, does not appear I have any other callers on the phone. I will go ahead and, sir, there was another speak from the public floor.
Tom Wicknick, just an informational question. Who's on Measure P committee, and did Skip get to appoint somebody to the committee? Because usually every council person appoints somebody to the committee. And by his question.
It's informing, it hasn't
Yeah,
been.
it's in the process. We haven't
process of being put
seated
together.
it
We have
yet.
not seated it
Okay,
yet.
so you haven't established the committee yet?
We have not gone out for it yet.
Okay, it sounded like you did. That's why
Right.
I'm asking the question.
No, we have not seated it yet, no.
You said that correctly.
No problem, great question. Any other public comment from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to our next item, which is our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Oh, council announcements, I'm sorry, council announcements direction, my apologies. I skipped over that, thank you. Council announcements, Mr. Gorman.
I know I get the agenda and I read that, but I'm never prepared when it comes time for these spontaneous comments, of which I have none. I'll not take up our time offering any.
Doc?
I have none.
Mine is simply an announcement, which is anybody who has a youth child, either male or female, who is between the ages of kindergarten and 18 and has an interest in scouting, the local troop and pack will be holding the Scoutorama this Saturday at the Desert Empire Fairgrounds from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. We'd certainly love to see more children involved, and we'd welcome you there. Solomon.
I want to bring the attention of the staff to some of the dilapidated houses lying around in our city. So they are eyesore and they spoil the quality of life of the neighbors who are living there. So I would request the staff members to take a look at these things, especially one house on 505 South Helena, I think. So I would appreciate if staff can take a look at that and take some action on those things so that quality of life is not just macro level, it's also micro level. So we need to take care of those things. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I believe Captain Tucker should be getting back with you information on that. I know that we've been working with the property owner, and I do not believe if we have that in receivership or not. But I know that, yeah, it's almost in receivership. There's some issues with the title on that and how we move forward. But that is currently being worked, but Captain Tucker should get you a response to your email.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have no comments.
No comments? Okay. So now we'll try this a second time. The consent calendar is our next item. All items listed on the consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before action is taken. There are 4 consent items. The first is proposed action to approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council regular meeting dated August 2nd, 2023. 2 is to approve a staff's use of Placer AI analytical software to assist in economic development activities to improve the quality of life within the Ridgecrest community. Number 3 is a request for sponsorship of the Petroglyph Rock Art Festival, November 4th and 5th, 2023. And number 4 is proposed approval of increased appropriations to the fiscal year 23-24 budget for the design, bid, and construction services for the new Sergeant Penny Memorial Pool Aquatic Complex. Well, that is a mouthful. Does any members of the council wish to have an item pulled?
You might as well pull item number 2.
Okay.
I'll take a moment to say to all the nice folks who came.
Hold on one second. Is there any other items that are being pulled first? Mr. Gorman, I will absolutely give you
sorry.
the opportunity to speak first. Is there any other items which wish to be pulled?
Mayor, I do have one quick correction to the minutes. It was stated that Mr. Heyman came in at 6:08 in the minutes, and he did come in at 5:08, so I will be making that change.
Okay, thank you very much, madam.
You're welcome.
And then, is there any other item which a member of the council wishes to have the item pulled? No, is there any other item which a member of the audience or public wishes to have pulled? Okay, Mr. Gorman, you have pulled item number 2, approval of the staff's use of Placer 8I. Please go ahead.
We stumbled into a,
Mayor, should we not have the motion on the consent first and then take the item?
Yes.
1, 3, and 4.
1, 3, and 4 first? Okay, no problem. So do I have a motion for approval of items 1, 3, and 4
So
as
moved.
presented?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. Okay, let's do a roll call. Mayor Bruin?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Gorman?
aye.
Motion carries on 1, 3, and 4.
Great, thank you. I thought we did it after we did whether or not it was pulled up, but that's no big deal. Mr. Gorman, you have requested item number 2. Please proceed.
We veered into a learning moment is why I even spoke just now. One of the first things I learned when I started coming to city council meetings many, many years ago, and that is if something appears on the consent calendar, which is a poorly named title of a list, I'd rename it if I was in charge. You only get one shot at talking about anything on the consent calendar, and that's this moment right now. If you have something to say about anything on there, you raise your hand and you'll be recognized, and you say the number and it's pulled, so we get to talk about it. I don't know how these things are resolved. I'll find out. It'll be my learning moment also. So those of you who may not have known, I pulled it for you. And we'll see where this goes. There, I'm done. But
Okay.
that's not the reason I pulled it.
Okay, do you want to express your reasons? I mean, this is your opportunity to speak, so,
May I wait till last?
yeah, okay,
Terrific.
sure. Is there any other council comments on, yep,
So I think everyone, I've made it, I think, pretty clear on where I stand on Placer artificial intelligence. And so, it's been a kind of a lengthy, long process here. And after this time, I still stand even stronger on my opposition to it. So I find it interesting. Since our last meeting, I did have one unsolicited member of this citizen of the community contact me that was in favor for it. But I've had numerous unsolicited comments from other members of the city that are in opposition for it. And those are ones I don't go out and ask them about it. They, sought me out and brought it up. I've personally asked numerous other individuals about it since the last meeting, and I'm telling you, it's an overwhelming, feedback that on the side of that they don't want to be tracked. I think it's an overreach of privacy for a citizen in this state and in this country. We have a right to travel and be free, and that includes not being surveilled. There's ways to get this data that I think, you could do point of contact numbers, and you can know how many people go to Walmart. I go to Bass Pro Shops, and they got one of those old school rotational, I don't know what you call it, entry points into the store. And so they know how many people enter their store, foot traffic. They know how many people purchase items through their sales and how much is spent in the store. So I think we could, I do believe and agree with the council, or, those, let's just say those that are in favor of it, that, the data, and I've said this before, is benign in and of itself. I don't think the act of surveilling is benign. Maybe currently at this point, my understanding is that Congress and other people are looking into the privacy concerns that we have there. But I think we're aiding and abetting, a company such as Placer AI in purchasing this data. So I think there's other ways to get it. So I'm anxious or, waiting, any other feedback that we, from the citizens in the council tonight. And and look forward to listening to it, so.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Can I listen to the public comments and then come back?
Absolutely. We will have an opportunity for the council to come back. Mr. Blades?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. So I think I've made myself pretty clear, but if not, there's new people listening tonight. The Placer software, it uses, we got to see a demonstration. It uses aggregated data, data that by the time it gets to Placer is already anonymous. I think there's a lot of people that don't quite understand and haven't been told the whole story on how it works. Somebody's phone's ringing.
It's probably mine.
Okay, and that's,
Mine, sorry.
I don't fault the public, all right? How anybody has time to dig into things like these, it does take a lot of time. I did sit down there was a night off Balsam. It was a pretty good event. I sat and talked to more than a few people who approached me, sometimes aggressively, which is fine, to ask me, hey, what is the deal? How does this actually work? And it was nice because there was chairs and tables and I could sit down and talk at length about how the software works. And then once I had got rid of their security concerns, then it was, okay, now tell me what financial, so we're spending some money, what are we getting for it? I spoke a lot about this the last meeting and I was able to say, it's for economic development. We're able to get quicker a report that we would go to a consultant to get. We're able to look at globs of data that allows us to better attract businesses. I on the council, and I welcome any of the rest of you to go to these ICSC conferences. Stand in front of these businesses and give them your tales of Ridgecrest and tell them. And without data, without something in front of you in your hand, which, by the way, they have already, a lot of what you're saying isn't of much use. And that's really the other thing I needed to point out. The city itself isn't tracking you. And if anybody is telling you that the city is tracking you, that is inaccurate. For the city or the law enforcement, anybody to track you, they would have to have a warrant. And I wrote this down, months ago. I was just looking back to my notes and remembering that I wrote it down. I believe it was in 2018. Sorry, just give me one moment. In 2018, the state passed a law on the right to your privacy. So there's no, we did take an oath up here. People love to remind us that we took an oath, and I have no problem saying it again every single meeting. We took an oath to defend the Constitution, to represent the people that elected us to represent them. I could tell you that if I thought that we were moving into some dystopian adventure, there's no way that I would champion that. So, and that's something I needed to say, and I'm sure I'll have more comments later. And if the public has questions for me, because I was the one that spent a lot of my time for years now talking with Placer, I can tell you that I talked to them for a long time, not because I was courting them, because I wanted the same questions that everybody has in this audience, and it's on YouTube. I had those exact same questions. And they caused me to go do more research of my own when I went home. How are they getting the data? How is the software even created? What goes into the software? All questions that I'm sure everybody else is wondering. And if anybody wants to actually sit down around a table and talk at length and detail and understand how it works, I'm happy to do that. But the city itself is not tracking you. Placer AI itself isn't even tracking you. It's getting aggregated data, putting it into a user interface for us to look at. It's got about a 96, you were doing the math, Travis. What is a 96% accuracy rate?
Yeah, 93, 95, and if anybody knows how a 95% confidence interval works, I get it with that. Statistics at its best.
So what Travis just said is 93 to 95% accuracy rate is statistical. It's statistics. Statistics laid over census data. So I just needed to make sure that was, because we keep flirting around, not just this council, but I hear the public say, I had a few people when they approached me and have approached me in the past, they said, man, I don't like the city tracking me. I said, well, I got good news for you. The city's not tracking you. Now, let me flip that coin over for a second. If you do not like the fact that that data is even being gathered, okay, I can understand that. I can. But that is the price we pay for having free apps. If you have an app that somebody is the commodity at all times. Facebook gets its data from us, all the social media sites. If you have an IP address on something, that data is being sold. If you're getting a service for free, in some way, shape, or form, you're paying for it. And I'm not looking at anybody specifically when I say all this. I'm just saying that I think it's a lot of things that maybe, technology moved real fast at lightning speed. And I think there was a lot of people that weren't always ready for it. So I think I don't need to delve too much deeper. I don't really know how else to approach it other than the few bullet points. Well, if you're not being tracked by the city, A. B, we're using it for economic development. C, it's pretty useful because almost every single other company that I've approached yet at ICSC is already using it. So that's the last point I need to make. If the city opts out, which I was happy to just let the city manager deal with this because that's what the city staff does. It's like me asking the finance department if they want to use Excel. But if the city manager decides that the program is no good to him and he decides to opt out of it, guess what? Everybody else is already using it. They're using it right now. Not just cities, all companies. So hopefully that puts it into perspective on where we are and why the city would want to use the software in the first place.
I'm going to go ahead and echo Mr. Blade's comments, but just in a brief, which is, again, I have been fairly open in my opinion, and I see this as technology use at its best. I think that the misconceptions, and I kind of thought of the old game telephone, where you have 5 people in a row and you start and you say Cindy has blonde hair and she really likes Jimmy. And by the end, she's a brunette and she hates Jimmy. That's what we've seen happen here to this argument. The city has no access to track or to have any hand in any tracking of any citizen. The idea of tracking, which has been created by several individuals who've, through public comment or through communication, have falsely and inappropriately defined what this is happening. If you want the app to track you, you say yes. If you don't, you say no. If you don't want the app to be there, you uninstall it. If you don't want anybody to track you anywhere, leave your phone at home. It's a cost of using the software that you want to use. Placer AI and their agreement with the app companies is not subject to the city of Ridgecrest. They have your data regardless. There's nobody in here who can say a single word about tracking and stopping it, and if we choose not to move forward, that is going to stop the data from being accumulated. That's 100% in the individual user's hands through the control of their individual device. The city of Ridgecrest has no hand in that, nor any control. All we are doing is subscribing to a service that allows us to see data. And there are services like they're out this everywhere. I mean, when you subscribe to Netflix, what are you getting? You're getting a library of indexed data that you can watch, right? If you subscribe to Follow My Health, the app, okay, for Ridgecrest Hospital, it brings you data. Does that Follow My Health? Do you know whether it's providing its data to Placer AI? No, but it certainly says, do you want to track or not track? And you can say no. And then there was an argument made that I really kind of thought was unfair to the incredible education base of our community. They said, seniors aren't going to understand how to use it. Oh, I'm sorry, but somebody pointed to me the perfect way to look at that. That's like saying that African Americans don't know how to vote. That's like taking an entire group of people and saying they are incapable of handling their own technological needs. They can turn it on or off. I guarantee you they can. And to isolate to say that we shouldn't do something because seniors don't know how to turn something off is it's a negative reflection on the incredible education that our senior community has in this community. But more importantly, it says that somehow you reach a certain age and you're incapable of doing something. I don't believe that. So some of the arguments that have been made are simply just fundamentally based on tinfoil theories and the idea that we are doing something we have no hand in doing. We are literally subscribing or proposing to subscribe to a service that has data. The data has already been collected. We are not having any hand in the collection. So I hope that the comments understand this. I'm sure I'll hear tracking, and we'll come back and we'll talk about this again. Mr. Gorman, would you like to have the last word now before I hear public comment, or afterwards?
Okay, I owe everybody
Okay.
my opinion. Overall, I'm against it. I remember just last Saturday sitting out there with the music being played at the Saturday get-together that we all had. I'm almost distracted by this issue because I'm ambivalent going in. And I even ask, show me a sign. Does anybody remember the cosmic signs we had Saturday during the picnic? Hokey smokes. Takes your breath away. Thing is, we're here because 90% of the people I talk to are against this. Perhaps the reasons they gave weren't altogether coherent or informed, but they were against it. And I have to respect that. I don't understand it completely, but then I'm an old geezer. The extent to which I don't understand it, though, is indicative of our failure, especially those who do understand it up here, not being able to express what's going on in an intelligent way. I think Jesus had a far harder communication task before him to more provincial people. Yet he spoke in parable and simple metaphor, and he got his points across in historic ways. So it hasn't been expressed successfully. I'm not sure we need it, is another reason. I'm told by people who communicate well and whose hearts are in the right place that it has to do with growth and economic development. One of the things on my bucket list as I assumed this position, and I had 4 years to do this, was to get into a good discussion and help them understand what we mean by growth. That's a massive word. And it means different things to me as it may to somebody else up here or where you folks are sitting. I want to define growth properly. I don't know if counting noses through your iPhones for get-togethers is a good way. These guys, God bless them, they pass me stuff that to educate me on how this data is used, and I got some reports on Chipotle and McDonald's, and I guess they're sort of nifty. But one of the charts, and you can't see it from here. When I take over, I'll slide this into a contrivance, and it'll appear right up there. It has somehow, it linked iPhone numbers with household incomes, and it stretches between $15,000 and $500,000 household incomes, and it's a bell curve, as you would expect. But how in the world did Placer AI connect household income with your telephone? I don't know where that connection happened.
Census data.
Census data.
Census data.
They overlay they take the data in large chunks and overlay census data. It's a prediction.
The household income is not connected to your telephone?
No. Census data.
It's census data.
They said that 3 times.
As a matter of fact, they said that at the
demonstration.
demonstration.
3 times that it's all located, it's all overlaid with census data, which is public data provided by the government.
See how dim you get when you're 77?
Yeah, you can opt out of that too.
Yeah, that's another thing. I have no idea, and nor should I be required to, quote, opt out, unquote, of anything. It's for them to opt me in if I agree to it. There's a little bit of pushiness in it that I can't define very well, but that I didn't like either. And that's all it. I misread things. I take it all from the right half brain. And anyway, $19,000 a year is not chicken feed. We're flush from Proposition P. I don't want anybody to get the impression that we're willing to spend money more readily than we might have been before. That's all I have to say.
Okay. If you want to have your comment, I was going to open it to public next, so.
Okay, that's why
It's your
so I
call.
want to go ahead and talk. You can take a pig and put lipstick on it and put a tutu on it, and you can go to the junior livestock fair and sell it, and it's still a pig. And that's how I look at Placer. Nobody's saying that the city is tracking somebody. I mean, you do hear maybe a couple comments about that. Placer AI is the one who's doing and gleaning the data. We're buying some aggregated data. That still makes us a participatory partner in this scheme of I think, that violates the privacy of individuals. So that's it in a nutshell. So you can try to argue some of the variable points like the mayor had brought up earlier, but that's really not the big picture here. And so we're still playing a part of it, whether you want to be an accessory to it or not. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to read a comment from one of the citizens that was sent out to us today. So this is a member of citizen of Ridgecrest. It says, "Good morning. I'm writing to state that I'm totally opposed to taking the action to contract with Placer AI for any reason. It is a gross invasion of privacy, and I believe that it will do nothing to enhance the ability of the city of Ridgecrest in its attempts to attract new businesses. As a resident of the city and a taxpayer, I'm opposed to the use of my tax dollars in this fashion. It is hard to believe that our community wishes to have this type of surveillance. It would be greatly appreciated if the council would reconsider this course of action. I urge all of the council to vote no on this item. Very respectfully, Elaine W. Jansen, citizen of Ridgecrest." That's a pretty, I would say, duplicative response from the public. And that's why I wanted to bring it and read it to the public today. So.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Yeah, well, just go ahead and light up to public comment, and we'll have individuals.
Oh, there. Okay.
There's a camera up here.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure. Okay, can I do that? I got to make sure they see my signs.
Just leave things where they are and you will be seen.
Okay. So I'm going to bring my signs. I had a lot of fun. I'm Mike Sonat. I had a lot of fun at the Balsam Night. I conducted a PSYOP and surveilled the whole thing. And what I want to do to tell you, to clarify this, is I'm going to refer exactly to the Director of National Intelligence report to help clear up some of the misconceptions and confusions coming from the dais. First of all, the number one item is that Placer should be viewed as a surveillance virus. They're a collector of data from user apps. They're a reseller. And the way that they infect users' cell phones is through an SDK or software development kit. Right now, they're acquiring the location data from Life360, which is a permission-based subscription app that does a lot of really neat things, allowing family members to track other family members or dogs or their cars. But it is a surveillance virus that it is tracking. And they do collect all this data from initially the census tract data. They put everybody in a group of 50 residents, and that's how they anonymize. And they can simply de-anonymize the data that they have using other commercially available information like property sales records or otherwise. The number 2 point that I want to make, and this is right out of the Director of National Intelligence report, the single most important point in this report is that commercially available information is increasingly powerful for intelligence and increasingly sensitive for individual privacy and civil liberties. Placer AI is one of the most powerful surveillance technologies that I've ever seen. I've been in the technology and programming and data management business for 25 years. I have a highly technical background in networks, much greater than anybody on this council. And I can guarantee you I've spent more time programming and developing than Noam Ben-Zvi. Number 2 item, Placer and Life360 and other app developers have violated our privacy rights by reselling this data to the government. That's what they're doing. They're reselling the data in the form of reports. At some point, they will be reselling live data via Life360 and other mechanisms. And I'll refer to the report. I'm going to skip forward. That Congress must act to prohibit the sale of location data to third-party providers like Placer for any reason whatsoever, much like HIPAA. In other words, you cannot sell medical information to anybody, and you shouldn't be able to sell location information to anybody without permission. It's not a permission that is granted at the app level that we're worried about. It's a permission of the app developer reselling this as commercial data. And then the government is buying it. This is the most powerful surveillance technology that I've ever seen. And I'll read the last paragraph of the DNI report. I dropped my sign. Sensitivity. CAI can reveal sensitive and intimate information about the personal attributes, private behavior, social connections, and speech of U.S. persons and non-U.S. persons. It can be misused to pry into private lives, ruin reputations, and cause emotional distress and threaten the safety of individuals. Even subject to the appropriate controls, CAI can increase the power of the government's ability to peer into private lives to levels that may exceed our constitutional traditions and other social expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am? Thank you for coming back up, Judith.
Now, is this the time? Okay. Again, my name is Judith Ward, and I've been a resident here for a long time. And I really want to thank you for this opportunity to express myself on this subject. One is I've been in the commercial business of selling insurance, and there were lots of ways that we were able to get data on people, their incomes and as prospective buyers, like people who have private airplanes, have a certain income level, and they are the people that you want to target to buy a life insurance policy or some other type of policy because they have the money. You don't want to target people that just buy Big Macs. And I sort of really do resent the attitude that we don't know what we're talking about when we object to this proposal. I just remember a few years ago with President Trump said more people came to his inauguration than anybody else to Obama's. And how did they find out that he was not telling the truth? They had photographs, they had traffic, garbage collection and trash that they collected so they could compare how much trash was left. How big were the crowds with the photographs? Well, we have other ways to get data to get that is less expensive and less intrusive, from traffic patterns, parking patterns, person-to-person surveys, garbage collections, photos, sales, and collecting zip codes. So there are lots of ways that we can find out about where people are, how many people come to our city, buy from our city, and other ways that are less intrusive. I'm not being paid. I'm not worried about maybe one of two of you saying, okay, I know where you live and I'm coming after you. That's not the problem. The problem is that we have too much of this already and we don't want more of it. I don't want more of it. And I resent being talked down to, that I don't know why about the technology or anything else. I know that the U.S. Park Service is able to collect and give accurate data about how many people come to the 4th of July party at in Washington, D.C., by how much trash is collected. Well, we can do that here, and it doesn't cost all that much money. Why don't we try something else? And why don't you listen to the people and respect the people who say they don't want it, as opposed to talking down to them? Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to say just a few things here. I really have talked to a lot of people in the community. They're really against the AI. They just think that why should we pay a company to basically track the data? They said, okay, so if we have the power to turn off our data for Placer, so why is the city going to go and pay that much amount of money? And it's not going to be worth it if a lot of people turn off the data. So what is it going to do for that? I myself, I'm a little bit against it. And I would say about 20% of the people that I have talked to, they're really against it. So if you say 70 to 90% of the people will turn off their data, you guys are just going to be paying money for nothing. So please, I really hopefully that you guys say no to this. And thank you, Mr. Heyman, for bringing this subject back into the meeting, because I heard the meeting 2 weeks ago, and I'm so happy that you actually requested for this meeting to be brought up. Also, that money that you guys are going to be spending for that, I think it should be going into those streets that are nasty. They need to be fixed. There's a lot of places in Ridgecrest that needs to be fixed. Our landscaping down China Lake Boulevard, it's horrible. Those palm trees that are dying needs to be trimmed up. There's a lot of stuff that our city needs to do, really. If you want something for big businesses to come to Ridgecrest, you might want to start making it looking better. Maybe that will help. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment from the floor?
Good evening, Kathy Russell, longtime resident of Ridgecrest, and I do appreciate this opportunity also. I did take the opportunity to view the August 2nd meeting to try to come. I wasn't able to attend, so I'm glad that that was there and I could see that. I did have a question about the Placer as far as who contacted who. Now, Kyle, you said you go to these committees or whatever the development things, so you reached out to a foreign company to help you with AI.
They're not a foreign company,
So,
first of all, but they're an American company. But I ran into them as I ran into. So basically, what ICSC is, it's an enormous conference in Las Vegas, and I go there. I physically walk around, and I run into a lot of different companies. You name it, anything to do with, I mean, anything.
well, if
Gas
you look at
stations.
their contacts, it's all Israel. I mean, if
Yeah,
you
that
looked
was
at the
that was one
contact list-
person brought up the fact
No,
that
no, no,
somebody
I went
works
to
with
their
them is from Israel.
website,
Okay.
and went to their website, and all of the addresses are Israel, except for like 2 people. If you were gonna apply for a job, what the positions are, all of the positions say Israel. And
Okay.
no, I'm just.
No, I know. I'm saying I'm agreeing with you. Actually, I don't. That's like,
So
yeah,
I
that's
guess,
fine.
and it's curious to me because you work on the base and association with foreign companies and contracts. And I'm not saying, but I don't know. I couldn't tell from the website whether they're US based or not. That's what I'm trying to say. So that was just a question. And I also wanted to know what the renewal fees would be. If we go this first year, what are the continuation fees?
Sure. So it would probably be the same, somewhere around 18, 19K a year. That's if it's found to be usable.
Okay.
If the city staff decides that it's worth it,
Okay.
then they'll renew it. If not, it's like we had another company called Buxton that we got rid of. We used them for about a year. They weren't any good to us, so we got rid of them.
Did you use that company when you used to pitch Chipotle and other?
It turns out Buxton wasn't very too much. We were going to other consultants and gathering the data and walked up with paper reports.
Okay. So I was just trying to
And-
figure out what other companies are. I'm sure there's tons of them now
So
with
it-
AI to do this, I guess.
No, absolutely, yeah. So I wasn't arguing with you. I'm just saying. So the companies that at least that I've been to at ICSC, usually they have Placer AI on a tablet.
Okay.
And when you walk up to them, they verify the data that you're presenting them. They say, "Where are you from?" Ridgecrest. Okay. They bring you up. They look at all your information, and then you sit there at a table across from each other and analyze if you're compatible or not. And if you are compatible, a lot of times they'll say, "Okay, let's have a follow-up meeting. We'll bring this up to our leadership or whatever." Sometimes we have had some companies go, "Well, wait a minute. Let's actually talk really serious right now." And then that's usually when we have the city manager there. I go, "All right, well, you tell me, can we do it? Can we work out bringing you into Ridgecrest?"
And I understand, trying to understand how that all works. So, and you're saying opting in and opting out, and somebody else brought up that if you're opting out, but the problem is, and Skip mentioned it, why do I have to opt? Why isn't it an option to say I want to opt in? Because we don't know what apps they're tracking. We all know Facebook tracks, Google tracks, Maps track, Yelp tracks. So how do you know? You don't really know which one to turn off.
Right, and so to Mike Snot's point, so this is something that I want to make clear, that there is in a lot of apps, there is software embedded. Computer coders at some point, not all of them, some of them started putting inside of these apps, the term is scraping, data scraping technology, so that they could then sell it. I mean, this is capitalism at its finest, to be honest.
I know, to Facebook whistleblower, et cetera, that said they didn't even know what was in those algorithms because you're not the software guy that's creating them.
right.
And then all of a sudden you know that all this other information that you didn't know was there is there. So I get why some people are concerned, and I'm trying to understand technology.
Sure.
I don't want to be talked down to. I'm trying my best to do that.
I
so.
hope that I'm not. I was actually just trying to stop and slow down. I have been told a lot by the public that I talk too fast, I talk too much. So I was trying to stop and just slow down and talk. If anybody thinks I'm talking down to them, I'm not trying to do that.
Slow down. So,
Yeah, I get told that a lot.
And also, basically, the information they're gathering might be one piece, but there's also something that they call compilation of data, where this piece of data is benign, but compiled with all the other data, it's not benign, and you don't know when that's going to happen. And you trust Placer. They said, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to sell your data. This is all we have. Is it on some website somewhere, and you guys all have access to it, and are you guys creating the reports? Are you telling them what reports you want?
No. So the way it works is they gather the data. It's aggregated and anonymous when they get it. Okay. They take it and overlay it with that census data.
I saw the census data,
Yep,
so I can
and so
figure out they're
that's-
doing a percentage. We got 50% here, so 50% of the people that went into Walmart are this because that's what the census data tells us.
Right.
They're 50% of the people are between the ages of 18 and 64. So 500 people to go to Walmart, 50% of those are this age group.
Yes.
I get that, so.
Yes, ma'am.
I need a little
No,
more
no,
time.
you're okay. Rica, can we
Because
add-
Kyle
'cause
took a
I've
lot
been
of my
talking.
time.
You're right,
You
I'm
talked
sorry.
slower. Because you were talking
You're right,
slow.
Kathy, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I get that that's how they're doing it.
Sure.
And if you don't, and the data, I was an analyst on base, so I know that you can spin data a lot of different ways.
Absolutely, sure.
And the data's only as good as the inputs you put into it.
Yes.
And so that's a lot of aggregating, statistical, making economic decisions based on a lot of aggregated data and people that aren't going to be turning their phone apps on to say, don't track me. I don't want to know when I'm going in and out of whatever. They also said they're not tracking by phone number. They're tracking location. So your phone's sitting there for 3 hours or whatever they said it had to do in order to say the geolocation of your phone.
Yep.
So how does it then identify that that phone goes somewhere else? Because it's not tracking their phone number. Does it give it an ABC number? Does it give it a serial number? How do they do that?
I think, like, because you are an analyst, I think it's just large buckets of data, and I think they hit a threshold.
No, but I mean, they say they actually said that
Sure.
this is, they're not names and phone numbers, but they're saying this geolocation of this phone is going somewhere else. But there's all kinds of them in this room. How do they know it's his phone?
There's a MIME number, which is attached to every phone, which
Okay.
is like a serial number
Well,
essentially
I thought they said on the website they weren't tracking that number.
on the MIME. I'm just taking a guess. If you're asking
Okay.
how they would identify.
Well, that's why I'm
without-
saying that could be linked back again. Again, it's aggregated, compiled data. So I'm just trying to figure out, they say they don't do it, but they got to be some way to distinguish your phone from my phone.
Yeah, I mean, I wish you
Or
would have been
this
at the,
phone
I
for
wish you would
that
have been at the
one.
last meeting, Kathy, because
Phone A or phone B.
I didn't
I know,
ask
I
that
tried-
specific question.
I know I tried
Yeah.
to listen, but
Oh,
I
you're
didn't
okay.
hear that question, so.
No, you're okay.
So I understand people's concerns, and I again, you want to express concern, and you want to hope that your city council is listening to you.
Sure.
And I know the mayor made a comment about technology is there, so if you're digging a hole, if you're using your hands, you'd pick up a shovel because that's better technology. I also would say you would probably put on gloves to protect yourself.
No, you're, well,
So I'm just saying,
Sure you would, absolutely.
you're not going to put the shovel down, but you're going to add to that level of protection to use the tool appropriately. So that's all I'm saying.
Absolutely, Kathy. And I appreciate the questions, and I'm glad that you got some extra time to ask those questions. And I know I took up some of your time, and I apologize. So if you need, if
No,
you have
it's
anything
fine.
else, please do.
It's fine. That's the whole point of trying to get people's point across. It's open listening, open talking. So I appreciate that.
Yep, yep, it is, absolutely.
Okay.
And part of those gloves that you mentioned, and so I finally looked my notes back up, the California Consumer Act of 2018, it allows everybody to opt out of sharing personal information.
Right, and it's how to, and you mentioned that anybody can turn on, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody or to say I can't, but.
It's a slippery slope, Kathy.
There's a ton of apps out there, and I don't have a lot on my phone for that very reason. I don't want to have to be, every time I get an update on my phone, it says, change your security settings, because all of a sudden you start getting all this stuff that you opted out of, but now you have an update on your phone, and all this stuff, you have to opt out of it, not opt into it, and that's how they're getting all of our information. So anyway, I would rather have that. So I'm against it, obviously. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's capitalism.
Any other public comment?
My name is Stan Rotora. I'm a 50-year resident of the Valley, and I know a lot of people. And over the last few weeks, I've spoken to a lot of people. Probably not a surprise that not one person that I talked to, now we're talking dozens of people, not hundreds of people, but not one person that I talked to was in favor of Placer AI. My feeling is that this system is guaranteed to be abused. There's just no way that anybody is going to be able to keep it from being abused with the current laws that we have. Federal databases are hacked, and I'm talking about secure federal databases get hacked. State databases get hacked. This system is an accident just waiting to happen. It's not a question of will it happen, it's when will it happen. My feeling is that the only solution is for everybody in this valley, in fact, in the country, to contact their congressional leaders and have legislation that prohibits the selling of any personal information for whatever reason to any third party or any other company. So I would urge you to not encourage companies like AI, probably Placer AI, or any other company that's trying to sell personal data from doing so. What we need to do is just put a line in the sand and say, no more. Let's contact all of our legislators, say no more selling of private data. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
Tom Wicknick. I'll start off with that one lady that spoke about feeling like we're being spoken down to in a condescending way. I found out last meeting, at the end of the meeting, how condescending things could be. When the mayor sat up there and said, only 9 people showed up here tonight.
I did.
Well, you're right. You're right. So I represent 30,000 people. You all represent 30,000 people, okay? Yes, 9 showed up that were against it. How many showed up for it? 0.
Not a one.
Okay? You know, the city's so happy about running polls all the time to bolster their positions. How come you ever run a poll on this? To find out how the people feel about it. How come? Because one poll was run.
Tom, you sat up here. I'm right here. Tom, I'm saying it,
Okay.
and I will pause your time if need be. You sat up here on this dais before. So imagine if somebody like you were talking. I'm not asking to be defended. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm saying is, when something is uncomfortable, how people don't show up. You know how many people I've actually about trash have had stop me and say, "Hey, we like the system, but there's no way I'm saying that in public." Tom, you know that. I believe that you know that. You've been in this position. You sat up on this dais. You know that there's nobody going to show up and if stuff's controversial, or if they're not going to. A lot of people they don't like coming up. They send us text messages. They talk to us anonymously. They don't like it. People are non-confrontational. They don't like it.
You're right. And that goes to the next part of my statement is that, how come there aren't more people down here talking about it? Because a lot of people feel like if they come down here, they're talking to a wall, that nobody's listening. They say, why should we go down there, Tom? They don't listen anyway. Well, this might be an example. The poll that was run on Facebook, 244 people said no, and I didn't run the poll.
No, Chuck did.
Yeah.
He was happy about it too.
Okay.
I know, he called me.
Which meant 93% of the people that voted were against this. So why don't you run a poll? That's a simple question. And to say that the 9 people that came down here last time didn't matter, because that's what you said, in no uncertain terms. The 9 people that came down here doesn't matter because I know more than you do, and I'm going to do whatever I want, regardless of what you say. That's what comes across. And the people that came to me in the last 2 weeks, like the others, I didn't find anybody that said, yes, let's do this thing. Sure. I did hear people say, why doesn't the city run a poll? And I said, that's a good question, and I will ask that for you.
What, can I answer that, Tom?
Sure.
Sure. There was, that it didn't come up, but there's no way that I would ever, me personally, recommend to the staff that we run a poll on an issue that's complicated, that even if I have to sit, every single buddy who talks to me, everybody who's asked me about this, I have to sit down and explain. It's like water. Stan, I mean, you're out there. When people talk to you about water, it's not like you're going to get that across in 5 seconds. And if somebody walks up to me and they're like, "Hey, Kyle, how do we feel about you? We want to take your data, man." I'm like, "Yeah, man, no, don't do that." But if somebody actually sits down and explains to me how the whole thing's working, okay. And I tried telling Chuck. Chuck ran the poll.
Yeah.
He was very happy about it. He had no problem giving me a lot of grief about it, which was fine. And I said, "Chuck, I understand what you're doing is you're running a poll, and there's no way you're giving all the information to the people. So people are taking a poll. They're giving their opinion on what they're being presented with. You would have to actually present people with the data. And it's incumbent upon us to explain to people when things like this come up, the full issue. It's no different than the rest of the issues that we face. So no, I would never recommend to the staff, "Hey, you guys should go run a couple line poll." And nobody's going to read through a paragraph. Nobody wants to do that. Sorry, that was just, I didn't want to. I want
And
to
if
make
I'm
sure your
correct,
time
there's
is
over
cut off.
19,000 members in that group, and there were 200 responses, correct?
I don't know how many people were in the
I
group.
believe there's roughly 19,000 in the
Well,
group.
I mean, statistically, no, you're right.
That's 1%.
Sure.
The clock is running, and they're talking.
Oh, I thought it was paused.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'll be quiet. You guys go ahead.
I have been given direction not to stop it when there's a dialogue.
I'm sorry, I was asking personally because I took up your time, Tom. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I do, at least I want to give you this, Kyle.
Sure.
At least you are talking, and we're having a little bit of dialogue like the one lady said about having dialogue. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's assume that we go ahead and do this, and of course, I'm hoping that you don't. I want to know what controls are, because like I said last time when I brought it up, how much information is the council going to be able to get individually? Well, anyone, in other words, this is a process thing, policy and process.
Sure.
Okay. When you want data, well, one of you, and I'm not saying you will, I'm using this as an example.
Understood.
Well, one of you say, "Hey, I want to know how many people went in Guns for Us today." Okay. What are the controls going to be that one of you couldn't say, "I want to know how many people went in Albertsons"? Mr. Strand, can you run a Placer AI info? Find out how many people went in Albertsons this week. What are the controls going to be to make sure our privacy in this community, not only personally, but business-wise, is protected from unscrupulous requests for information? Okay, yeah, trust you.
No, I'm not. That's fine if you don't want to trust me. That's Tom. That's fine if you don't. But
So I'm asking what controls are going to be placed if you go ahead with this thing?
so on top of the policies that already exist for Placer AI, which are a lot, they have a lot of policies already. This is as I understand it. Okay, and then the staff, the city staff, I'm sure they're going to have their own policies. They're going to have people who run reports. We're doing it for economic. We have an economic development committee meeting that we're at all the time. I've actually talked about Placer AI for several years now at those economic committee meetings.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really see how it can be used nefariously. I'm trying to see it, Tom.
When you congregate all the data that can be accumulated and lay it on top of each other with all the other information that they have available to them, you can find out a lot of information.
No, yeah, I'm sure you can. Okay,
Okay.
Tom,
Anyway, my time's run out, but I think I covered most of the stuff I wanted to carry out. But it's one thing to say that we don't matter when we come down here. And that's what we were told at the end of the last council meeting. We don't matter. And now I can say, "Oh no, I respect you." You respect that we have a right to get down here and talk, but you don't have any kind of respect for what we say.
Tom, during the meeting, I actually handed my phone number out to somebody.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was
Hi.
this guy
I'm
never
Lisa
quits.
Lewis.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'm Lisa Lewis. I've lived here my whole life. I've talked to several people about this, and I haven't found anybody that agrees with it at all. Nobody. Everybody's afraid of, well, today's world is the problem, is that nobody's safe from this data stuff. We can't trust the government. We can't trust the state, and then we're worried about the city. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world that people don't trust this kind of stuff. They feel like their freedom is being taken, and I feel that way too. There's over 4,000 plus apps that this is behind, and it does not identify itself as it being behind an app. You say it's okay that I can okay this app for it to follow me. Well, I'm going to do that on Google Maps for sure. It's going to follow me because I want to know where I'm going. I don't, that's,
That's okay.
No, it's
Just let her
okay.
come
Yeah,
up.
it's okay. I stand with you.
Let her
That's
come up.
fine.
Don't worry about it.
Of course, if she needs to stand with you.
okay, you want to stand? You can. But, sorry, honey. But there's so many apps that are out there that these are hidden behind. So you don't really have that choice of saying, I don't want Placid AI. You don't really have that choice because there's the app that you're okaying without really okaying the AI app. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on, sweetheart. Come on.
Yes, my name is Joseph Martin. We met last time I was here, and we were talking a little bit about the Placer app. Now, I have, since this last meeting, have talked to different people about the Placer app, particularly different opinions from locals that lived here and even people out of my union. Reason why I talked to people out of my union was to see if they ever heard or dealt with this app before, and they said that yes, they have. They felt that it was actually beneficial to them, and it was actually a great thing for gathering data. However, they are not in a remote area. San Bernardino County, especially where they live in the city of San Bernardino, it's a bigger area that has a lot of technology. This being a remote area, I don't think it's a smart business move. If you look at it and why it's not a smart business move, well, you already can't get the community to comply and want to participate with it. So therefore, I have a few questions. Let's start with you. My first question for you is going to be, is the Placer app going to require towers to be built for it to operate?
No, it will not.
No, so it's not going to have any required towers, no more fiber optic cables, anything going into the ground for anything for it to function or anything
Nothing
like that?
additional, no.
Okay. And then I guess this next question is for the mayor. I'm not sure what your name is, sir.
Eric.
Eric, okay. How can you guarantee an economical boost if the app were to go through?
So again, there's no app that's going through. There's no app that we're agreeing to. We're subscribing to a data aggregation software. So that allows us to pull the data in. And the best way I would describe it is if I'm able to go out to groups or organizations, businesses, community groups, anything like that, and be able to show them what our traffic numbers are, we can hopefully move past some of the rural stigma that we're not going to be able to draw enough people to an event. Perfect example, we have a group that came out to the Night Off Balsam. We are very happy to welcome a different type of flavor to the community. They were an Indian burger provider, and their first comments after the event was, we were amazed at the amount of turnout that we had, and we wish we had more staff and supply to be able to meet the full expectation of what we could have sold. If I had been able to tell them in advance that this last event produced over 4,000 people and brought 500 from out of town, that certainly would help me be able to economically develop those types of things. That's just one small example, but when you put it on a macro scale, then you can see where we can actually try to break some of the stigmas of we're a small town, we can't do this, we can't do that, and we shouldn't be doing certain things in economic development.
Okay. And the other question I have for you, so it's a major concern to all of us, you know, especially here, let's talk about it because a lot of people weren't in it here for this last meeting. But let's talk about the fact that after the presentation was over and we went on with the regular meeting, did or did not the TV come back on with the guy that gave the presentation for the Placer app?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, he didn't hear us tell him to get off the WebEx, so he just stayed on the WebEx.
Yeah, you just stayed on WebEx.
He just
The
didn't
WebEx is open to anybody that we would send a link to potentially.
Right, but we all were under the impression that he was gone as to where we can opt out of this app.
No, you're not. There's no opting out of an app. That's what I'm trying to make sure that you would be the individual app, like Waze, okay, or Carl's Jr., okay. They present you an option
at that app level, at that individual app level, to choose to have the app track your location. For example, Carl's Jr. uses its app tracking to be able to tell you that your mobile order, you're within half a mile of their location, that sends the signal to tell them to start the order, okay? Every app has different functionality. There's no Placer AI app that we are subscribing to or providing to. Every app that you have on your phone may or may not have an agreement with Placer AI to provide data. We are simply subscribing to a data aggregation service.
Okay, and the gentleman right here next to Scott, what's your name? Skip. So, Skip, you bring up an interesting point, which has my concern too. So with Mayor feeling that it will boost in economical growth, my last question for you then, sir, would be, what information can the Placer app see, like have access to? This gentleman said that, it gave his financial information. Some people might not want that information being collected under their data.
It gives, the only financial information is just census data that people have provided through census. So they overlay it with large groups of data they collect out of that aggregated cell phone data. So there's no exact data. Like Placer doesn't know that your cell phone and your information. They just know that in the city of Ridgecrest, there's X amount of this race and X amount of this gender, and overlay that with this amount of people who make this much money. And it has like a 93 to 95% accuracy.
I mean, what I guess I'm saying is, can it see like my bank statements? Can it see like if my girl sends me like, a photo that I don't want to know what it is?
Nothing like that.
Things like that,
No.
Nope. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Is there any other public comment from the floor?
As I stand here, echoing in the back of my mind is the immortal words of John McQuiston: never resist the temptation to keep your mouth shut. So I'm woefully prepared. I'm a little more prepared than most people to talk about this, but I didn't come here, obviously, to talk about this. But first of all, the fact that nobody showed up is proven. If you're in the customer service business any length of time, people don't typically show up when they're happy about something. The numbers of people that show up or complain or whatever are astronomically greater when they're upset about something. People that are content are not concerned, are not going to show up to place that echo to you. I wish they did. When you give great customer service, you rarely hear about it. You only hear about the failures. The poll, I think it's rich that the poll was done on Facebook by a bunch of people who don't want to be tracked. And if you looked at the poll question was totally dishonest. I don't know if it was intended to be dishonest, but it misrepresented what this does, which again illustrates the problem with the narrative. It's so hard to get the grasp on this narrative. I was coming back from a fair meeting in Sacramento the night you guys had this at council. So I listened to that meeting on my car radio driving from LAX back to Ridgecrest. I never had heard of Placer AI. Ironically, 3 days later, I get a call at the fairgrounds from Placer AI and said, we'd like to give you a presentation. I was like, yeah, I really want to hear this now because I got just enough of it on your call. So I got a full presentation at the fairgrounds. And the presentation asked me, the premise of my presentation was, what do you want to look at? And I initially wanted to look at the last fair. And then I said, no. I changed my mind because an event that we really hadn't at that point got a good grasp on was our annual fireworks event. Because we all thought we had great numbers, but nobody was out there counting. So he gave me the numbers of not last year's fireworks event, this year's fireworks event, but last year's fireworks event. So it's not live data. It's old data by the time we get it. But we found out we had 5,200 people that actually had phones, doesn't count little kids or whether, that had been at the fairgrounds. 135 of them came from the water park in Palmdale. I think 235, even though we had 22 vendors with food, I'm exaggerating, but we had a ton of food at the fireworks show. They went to Denny's after the fireworks show. But one of my questions to the guy was, we have a problem with people trashing our bathrooms. Can you get me the guy that was in the bathroom at this particular time and let me know who that guy was and track to his phone so I can find out who messed up the bathrooms? No. I thought there was going to be an answer, but obviously, no, you can't track this. That's not the level of traction. But Chipotle uses this app, or uses this company. Dutch Brothers uses this company. Dollar General uses this company. McDonald's uses this company. And that's just the ones I know about right now. The biggest thing for me is this is a great resource to save you guys money. I mean, nothing happens in the world till somebody sells something. And the reason all this data is so valuable is nobody wants to waste resources in areas where there's no interest. And all we're trying to do, I was telling the guy, I'm trying to figure out whether I bring a country music concert to the fairgrounds, do I bring a hip hop concert to the fairgrounds? I need to know who's coming to the fairgrounds. The demographic has totally changed since the time I sat up on that dais. Everybody, the knee-jerk reaction, I guarantee you, everybody that came in to Chuck's poll would say, country music in Ridgecrest is a lock. I don't know that that's true anymore. It was in the 80s and 90s. But, I was up there, Buxton was the last one, but we probably used, I was actually cleaning out a room this week, and I looked at the economic plan when I was on council from 2007. None of that data is worth a damn. If you go look at the report, and they were trying to gather the same kind of data that we can gather now that's actually much more accurate. So to me, this is an incredible tool that can save the city money. And I don't see how anybody, every conspiracy is great because there's so much truth. There's a great deal of truth in a conspiracy for it to have any traction. So I don't disagree with a lot of things people said. Yeah, there is. It's an Israeli company, but it's based in California. Look at any startup. I mean, they're United Nations nowadays. But what we want to stop, what we hate, it's too late.
Can you wrap up in 15
That horse
seconds?
has left the barn. So if you're going to operate successfully in this environment today, I think this is a tool that will ultimately make you more efficient and hopefully save money, and then at the same time create an economic environment that will generate some wins going down and not waste resources in areas that we don't need to waste, because those same people that can tell you about polls or whatever can tell you everything you need to bring this town that they guarantee will be a success, and we can track the ones that they were wrong about.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any public comment from the floor?
I just have one other little comment. Technology is great, and I think this is, as its top level, sounds like a great idea. I think it's a trust issue with people today and mistakes that have been made with their data, with their personal data, with how much information people have about you. That's a trust issue. So all in favor of, oh, this is great up front. It looks good, sounds good, but maybe there's something underneath that we don't know or we can't protect ourselves from. And that's the fear that people have. I think it's afraid of the unknown, and we're not all tech savvy to know the algorithms that go into collecting this data or how it's going to be used eventually or what happens next. So that's the fear of how the data is going to be used. And I don't know if any of you on the board council have that much technology to go dig into the algorithm to go how they're pulling the data. I understand it, but there's a lot of hidden things in there, and that's, I think, what nobody's wanting the community to die or not have economic growth. That's not. It's just the ability to track data and not knowing what's really happening with it is the main issue, I think. So.
Understood.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other public comment from the floor? Okay, I'll go ahead and switch. We've got public comment on the phone. Go ahead.
Hello?
Caller, go ahead.
Okay. Let me get my mute. Okay. I'm, first of all, going to give you the answer that I am against this Placer AI. But the reasons are such that are kind of different. Looking from afar here at home, watching you guys all discuss it, it reminds me of a family where the head of the household, he or she, is addressing their oldest kid who wants the family to buy him a $1,000 play game station of something. And he or she has to tell them, look, the meteor came last week and punched a big hole.
Oh, that was just getting good.
Sir, you dropped. I apologize.
That's not. Well,
Okay.
I think it's Mr. Carroll. If you can hear us, please give us a call back.
Yeah, I apologize. I did not catch a name, so I don't know who it was that was speaking.
But he was against it.
Yeah. Go ahead with the next caller. Right, go ahead, caller, go ahead. Next caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead. Okay, I apologize. We have no volume or communication with the caller. I'm going to go ahead and give it just a second. Do we have any other callers?
April's still out there, too.
Hey, just a second.
Can we take a second? You're talking to the IT side?
Yeah.
Is he trying to flash me? Is that what he's flashing me communication? Yeah, I can't see with the lights and that. I can't see. Okay.
We can fit 3 more people back there, I think.
Yeah, somebody asked for an additional question from the floor. Go ahead while we're starting out IT.
I meant to ask this earlier. One of the issues I had with Placer was I can't afford it. But I know at previous times when we got surveys back and we noticed there was a gap in services in our community, council or economic development staff would go share that information with local businesses. Is it fair to say that if you get this information and you see where local businesses can participate and enhance their current situation, you will share that data with local businesses?
Well, I'm sure that it'll be done by city staff rather than council members because we're not going to have access to it, despite certain statements. So if city staff is working with a business in terms of an economic development opportunity, I'm sure that they would put all the resources capable to make that possible. But no council member would have a hand in it. Okay, do we have our callers back? There's nobody online. Okay, I'm going to give it just a moment. If anybody's out there who's been watching, the phone number's there. We did have a small technical snafu. There we go. I just want to make sure we give them an opportunity. Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
I'm on.
Yes, you are, ma'am.
Oh, hello. My name is April, and I just wanted to say that I am vehemently against the Placer AI. I think it's too much of a vulnerability that we don't really need to have out there. And I think Mr. Bruin brought up the fact that they already have the data, so why do we need to purchase this to get it again? And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I'll give it one more second if there's anybody else that may have been dropped that wants to call in. Okay, it does not appear so. I'll go and bring it back to council for any additional comments. Mr. Gorman, you did ask to be the last, so I'm going to let you be the last to have say. I'm going to ask if there's any other comments from other council members, and then I will grant you that, of course. Mr. Blades, any final comments?
No, I've said everything, and at the risk, I don't want anybody to think I'm talking down to them because that's the last thing I would want to do. But as much testimony, and I'll say this to you, Tom, I've talked to a lot of people myself too, and everybody knows that I work on base, and I interface with a lot of software engineers, mechanical engineers, aerospace engineers, and it's not the same opinion. That's all I wanted to say. I don't want anybody to think that I'm running off willy-nilly, making decisions on my own and running headlong into this thing. without input from anybody. That's it.
So, Councilman Rajaratnam?
I just want to thank the public for their comments as well as their concerns. I really appreciate that. For me, there are two issues in this. One is the security aspect, the personal data collection. The other one is the use of Placer for the benefit of economic development. So coming to the first one, which is the personal data collection, I think the message is not going to the community clearly. Citizens were asked question in a twisted way, I think probably to scare them out. If someone asks me if I want the city to track my personal information, I will definitely say no. But that is not what is happening when we use Placer for collecting the data. It has been time and again said, we get only aggregate data without identifying personal information. The personal data is, in the presentation, Placer, they said the personal data is scanned at the import as well as export levels. So for me, it's not really a security issue. I'm more concerned about how best we can use this tool to identify and attract potential new businesses, tracking attendance at events. One of the examples comes to my mind is IWEDC and Mr. Scott O'Neill, they are working to get the commercial air services back to Inyokan Airport. So we can use, in my mind, we can use Placer to get the data on how many people are traveling out of town to go to Burbank or LAX to fly to their destination. So by having that data, we can substantiate our demand, our request that we need an airport in this place. So that's how I am looking at it. And we can always share this analytical data with RACVB, probably they have some use for that. IWEDC, which I already mentioned, Chamber of Commerce, RARA, which is Ridgecrest Area Realtors Association, and Fairgrounds. So I think there is a lot of benefit out of this. We have been collecting data using different tools. Previously, we used Buxton Analytical Group to get the spending patterns. They use credit card data, which we realized is not very effective for us, and we terminated that contract. I think we paid them around $40,000 per year, Mr. Strand? It was 50. At that time?
Yeah, it was 50.
Something like that, I think. So just because some people ask me, we have tried these tools earlier, why do we want to try again if we know they are not useful? But just because Buxton and other tools did not meet our full requirement previously, it doesn't mean that we should not try a new thing. If one medicine doesn't work, we don't just let it go. We go for another medicine to see whether that would be useful to us. So I'm willing to take chance to go for it, and if we don't get the result we need, we can always terminate the contract. I have a question in this aspect to the staff. If we have a contract for 1 year, do we have a clause if we can terminate before the expiry of the 1 year?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I talked to many people, as you all have done, who asked me what is a guarantee that this Placer would have economic benefit to our community. I think most of us here know that there is no guarantee here. We are only trying. Nobody can guarantee this. But inquiries with other cities which have used this tool, like Shafter, Tehachapi, they have said there is a benefit and they are seeing the results by using Placer. So we just have to go by what they are saying. And unless we use that tool, we will not know whether it is working for us or not. And I understand the concerns of the people. Are we opening a can of worms here by using Placer? I don't know. I don't think so. Is this going to move the needle for us for economic benefit? We are hoping, but we don't know. We have to try and see. I always thought base is the backbone for our community. For retention and recruitment to be successful, one major factor is quality of life. If this tool can help us to improve the quality of life, that is great. If not, then we will discontinue using this one. Finally, AI. This is not AI, but real AI is not going anywhere. It will slowly creep into all types of industries. At some point or other, we have to embrace that. Otherwise, we will be left behind. Today, whether this passes, voted or not, that quiet gentleman would still continue to be trimming his curry tree for the benefit of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I guess I'm going to do one thing first, and that is I apologize if my tone comes off as condescending. I've been told that more than a few times over my entire life. And as Chip sits there and laughs at me because he knows it. I was really trying to make the point that I didn't think, that we should be linking about people's inability to choose how they want to track or not track their data within their phone. So if I came off condescending that way, I apologize. But the one thing I'm not going to apologize is me saying there were 9 people here, because that's accurate. We all have silos of people that talk to us. Every person that made a public comment, I'm sure that they have a silo of individuals that they have that, and same as I have silos of people that I talk to, or each of our individual council members or a staff member. We all have silos of people we talk to, and I wouldn't be shocked if some people's silos were very much in opposition to this. The silos that I've talked to have largely said, okay, we're doing it anyway. And I think that was, I believe, the majority of the people that we continue to hear from that are participating in our community events and participating in those things is quite honestly, the fear aspect that this was allowed to give oxygen to, and everyone has a right to be afraid, don't get me wrong. But the amount of oxygen that was fed into that fear, I appreciate what you're saying is that, the idea of my data being compromised is a fear. And if we go out and we run polls that say, do you want the city tracking your every movement? You're probably going to get a response that says they don't want it. But the fact is that that's not what we're talking about. It never was. It never has been. It's been inflated well beyond whatever the reality is. I said last time I thought we were making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm going to say it again. Because every single day, data is out there. It's being used in every single aspect of your life today. Your car, would be shocked to hear how many of the individuals that opposed it had OnStar on their car. Okay, that's exactly the same thing. Or used a mobile app to buy a meal, or used Waze, or used Google Maps, or used any one of these. And so I don't disrespect their opinion. I absolutely respect it. I just simply have an opinion that technology is a good thing for the future of our community. And, I have a saying that I've said for years, which is the greatest risk in life is not taking any risk at all. And so I see this as, less than half of what we spent on Buxom, which was one of the first contracts I canceled in one of the first meetings, was canceling Buxom because it wasn't delivering on what we expected. And they look like they've got an opportunity to deliver on what we're hoping, and we can see how it works and move from there at 50% of the cost. And I think it's responsible economic development in bringing more and more of the things that those four
4, 5, 6,000 people that are coming out to these events are looking for. And for those reasons, I'm very happy to support it. I respect everyone's comments. I do apologize if it sounded like I was being condescending or talking down to it. It was not my intention. Just sometimes the way I talk, sometimes my body language exposes me. But with that, I'm going to pass to Doc.
So I don't think the hope for a little bit of economic development benefit trumps the overwhelming response from the public, and they're not wanting to partake on this. So I think that it's pretty clear. So I wholeheartedly disagree with a lot of what's been said and against it 100%.
And Mr. Corbin.
Long ago, Mark Twain was faced with giving a speech to a room full of publishers, I think. He apologized up front when he said, "I'm afraid my speech is going to be a bit long. You see, I wasn't given time to write a short one." And that applies here to this extent. Another quick story, if you will. This fellow walks off the street into a bank and approaches the teller and slides a check under his nose and asks if he could cash that check here. The teller looks at the check and says, "Sure, you're in the right place." He turned it over and slid it back to him and said, "Just endorse the back of the check and I'll give you your money." And the fellow was adamant. He said, "Nope, my pappy said no, not to sign anything. I'll never get in any real trouble." The teller says, "I'm sorry, unless you sign this check, I'm not going to give you your money." And the fellow with a grand sigh took his check and walked out of the bank, across the street into another bank. Did the same thing with the teller. And the teller was told he's not going to sign the check, but he wants the money. The teller informs this fellow he's got a 2x4 back here with him. And unless that guy signs the check, he's going to come around to his end of this desk and he's going to whack him on the head with the 2x4. Well, the guy signed his check and got his money and was walking out of the bank, counting it, when the teller from the first bank approached him and says, "Don't tell me they cashed your check without you signing it." And the fellow says, "Well, I signed it." He says, "Why would you sign it for them and not for me?" He says, "Well, you didn't explain it as well as he did." We were challenged with explaining something really difficult to explain, and we failed. I don't know why we failed, because there's some pretty good communicators up here. But that happened. You're listening. You're not compelled to go along with this, nor am I. It's our failure. I don't know where things that are pulled from the consent calendar go. How are they resolved?
When you're done with your final comments, because we've done council comments, public comment, and council comments, I would then call for a motion for the approval, and it would go through Robert's Rule of Order with either a motion and a second, or no motion and would die on the vine.
Otherwise, there's a vote?
And if there's a motion and a second, then there would be a vote.
Okay, I didn't know. We'll find out.
Any item pulled off consent, Councilmember Gorman, after the discussion is completed, has a separate opportunity to be voted on.
Thank you.
And with that, I will entertain a motion for approval of item number 2, approval of staff's use of Placer AI analytical software to assist in economic development activities to improve the quality of life within the Ridgecrest community. Do I have a motion?
Yep, motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. Roll call?
We're going to do roll call. Mayor Bruin?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
No.
Mr. Gorman?
Nay.
We have 3 ayes, 2 noes. Motion does carry.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone who participated in the process. Next item on our agenda is our committee reports. We'll begin with our city org committee report, which is myself and Mr. Gorman. Do you want me to cover the Skip, or would you?
Oh, you do it.
Okay, thank you, sir. The city org meeting was held on August 3rd. We invited Waste Management to come back to our community and to discuss service issues occurring within the community. We had a good spirited conversation with several individuals, trying to go through the servicing side of the concerns. As I stated on a post, I think there was a very good discussion. From the result, we got the diversion numbers, which are the critical number. We shared at the at the last council meeting, we shared those diversion numbers where we've nearly tripled our diversion into recycling over the last 6 months through the implementation of the biweekly trash service. And that is having a direct and very positive impact on our avoidance of CalRecycle fines, and we discussed that. Ashley also from Waste Management was able to give us some statistics on uptime performance and where we're continuing to have service issues. We discussed the existence of the trucks and staffing, how county impacts could have on those. And I would say we largely had a good conversation with several members of the audience continuing to have questions about the weekly service. But from a performance perspective, I would say that we still have some confusion in regards to sorting, what should go to what barrel, those types of things. But largely, we will still go ahead with another town hall in September. And I think we're just going to kind of focus in on the sorting and the servicing side versus the weekly side. So that was the juxtaposition of the entire city org committee meeting. Outside of, we also are authorized city staff to go ahead and move forward with bringing Echo Hero back out to our local schools for the fall semester, and we're looking to continue to use some of the grant money for that opportunity. So we hope to get Echo Hero back out into some of our schools this fall. Mr. Gorman, anything else you'd like to add?
One thing, I should have mentioned this previously. One of the things that was mentioned during that meeting was the extent to which there's a big blue dumpster available in the waste management yard on County Line Road for people who want to go over there and toss in a well-bound pile of cardboard or other recyclable items. I went down there recently and observed that it's there. I'll call it the big blue dumpster. They're not called dumpsters, those big blue rectangular.
Just recycling containers?
We need a name.
Roll-off.
Oh, okay. Roll-off. It needs help. A petite person with a load of recyclables is going to rip a rotator cuff trying to toss it over the top and into that roll-off. You're standing next to one and you're looking up. It needs a little scaffolding, maybe some stairs. It needs some support around it. Waste Management may be listening. I know they do. It needs something around it so people can get up and toss stuff in. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Any other questions for the committee? No. Okay, next was economic development.
Yeah, we had some updates. We talked, so first off, the staff is always updating the development calendar. There's a online calendar if you want to go onto the city website. You can see what's coming and what is already here. You can scroll around. I was hoping to Megan take off already. I suppose so. There is also an EV park progressing next to McDonald's. So if you're wondering what's going on over there, it's an EV park. The Oasis complex is still on its way. They're shifting more towards entertainment as opposed to retail, but yet to be, nothing's fully solid there. Mr. Strand, do you happen, I know I'm cold calling you here. Do you happen to know, because I had a citizen text me where we're at with Habit Burger.
Yeah, we spoke to the owner's representative last week, Megan and I did, and they're looking at breaking ground at the end of the month, hopefully.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you. We didn't discuss a whole lot of, we didn't discuss much else. Thank you. Do you have any other notes? Okay.
Thank you. Next was finance. That's from the 8th. Doc, you want to take finance or you want me?
We can tag team it. It was, I think, a rather quiet meeting. We went over Measure V, TLT, property taxes, general fund, and where we sit today at the current status. And we're looking good on all those accounts. We're at, same, we're projected to be slightly over in each of those categories. I know we reviewed some future projects. I'll let you kind of take over from there and see what you want to add.
Well, I mean, so from a future projects perspective, we're definitely looking at, we get an update on ARP and where we're at with the money. We understand that we're going to probably need to look at finalizing what some of those projects look like. And we've had conversations with IWV Baseball and with some other groups that we're looking to see what is the best option, best solution for the ARP money. And I think that we'll hopefully have some direction, by the fall. I mean, we still have a lot of time, guys, with this, but we're getting closer and closer to now projects are getting done, and we've got hopefully Clean California and Leroy Jackson Sports Complex that should be kicking off by the end of the year, hopefully, if not the beginning of next year. So it's kind of seeing how all of these projects are stacking out and which ones are remaining. So we had some discussion of that, and then the other thing that's just another side note discussion for our local businesses. We were discussing the local businesses that have not yet implemented the Measure P tax and we were talking about certain receipts that we literally are going, this math doesn't add up, and then you figured out that they haven't actually updated their computer systems to apply the additional 1%. And I just want to put that as a public announcement message, guys. If you haven't, please take a look at your registers. Please make sure that you're assessing it properly. Because if you listen to the Measure V report, which is really kind of funny, when they're talking about money from Measure L coming in 2023 for a tax that was put in place in 2012, Sheree, now I feel even better about having my little bucket number, which I asked for a bucket number to be what is the variance between Measure V bringing in and Measure P bringing in, because Measure V is fully implemented 1%. Measure P as a fully implemented 1% should be very close or nearly matching, and it's safe to say we're not quite matching up yet. And so we're looking at those and paying attention to those. But overall, again, I would say that the city is in a good fiscal health position. We continue, as the report showed today, in screaming terms. Regular sales tax continues to decline, especially post the Wayfair decision, which is another complex conversation that we could have with the public in terms of how Rancho Cucamonga gets our sales tax instead of us. But the simple fact is that those decisions are made at the state, and those are the consequences we have to deal with. So where we're at right now is the base sales tax. The sales tax 1%, the two measures really control the future destiny of our community, because they're the only items protected from the state. And that's a really important fact. So of that, I generally calm finance meeting.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Next is RACVB has not met yet, infrastructure not yet, and quality of life will be next month. Other committees boards, or commissions?
I have KernCog tomorrow, and as a quick note, infrastructure is, we're probably going to end up canceling that one next month.
Okay. On that quick note, City Org is also going to be canceled in light of us putting together Trash Town Hall 3. Date to be announced, but it'll be sometime in the month of September. And we'll be putting that together again, focusing on the sorting and the education side. Any other boards or commissions? No? City manager report.
I have nothing to add. I'll let council members comment on Night of Balsam.
Any future agenda items?
Yes, real quick, Rika, thank you for bringing to our attention the opposing.
Oh.
Yes. My apologies, I didn't have it right. I should have been prepared for this.
How about this? Rika sent us something of concern, and I think we all were agreed upon it coming back for a future discussion and possible position. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. It was just about, I was just trying to find
we
the
all
exact,
are on the
the
same
exact
page.
measure. So anyways,
There's some proposed sweeping changes to the Public Records Act, and it could create a huge burden on municipalities if it passes. And I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be against it, but it came across my desk, and I sent it to y'all so that you could be aware, and we can talk about maybe writing a letter of opposition, because it would be a huge impact to my office.
Yep.
Yeah, so I
So-
just wanted to make sure y'all were aware.
if it's not another agenda item, then
It would go to the Attorney General's office, who are now looking at the qualifying the measure.
Okay.
Potential for the November 24 ballot. So we have some time, but certainly if it starts to get any traction at all, I want to make sure that we are aware.
And thank you for bringing it to our attention, and we'll make sure we bring it to a future meeting for discussion.
Thank you.
Any other future agenda items? Mayor and council comments. Skip, I'm gonna let you be the first off tonight. What, did I miss something?
no, I was telling Rick I fumbled the ball. I was trying to help her out and I fumbled.
Oh.
Eric, thanks. I'm getting a lot of noise. I was going to mention, I know it'll be mentioned by many of us up here, the Saturday picnic. Why do I call it that? It was great. I can't be more effusive about it. Those of you who may not have made it missed something grand. Mother Nature reached down and offered a truly cosmic kiss on the cheek to that whole affair. And I thought it was just wonderful. Indeed, what I heard from, I don't know, people sitting around, let's do it here, right here again in the future for our next one. Because the venue of Balsam Street can't match it. This is all the room in the world, grass, music, thunder, lightning, great sunset. I think it was wonderful, and it goes to show in spades that we can do something really cool. I was pleased. That's all I had to say.
I just want to say, I talked to a couple people that thought the night not on Balsam Street was, they enjoyed it more than the night on Balsam Street. So I thought that was interesting. So it'd be fun to hear what some of the data, that we take in post, event and kind of see. But it has been, from the folks I've talked to, I think they really enjoy, having the event in town and being able to get out and partake in. My kids do. We stay home and babysit and have pizza parties with grandkids and let the adult kids go enjoy themselves. So it's a nice event for Ridgecrest. I want to thank the public. It's nice to see a little more public participation. I know this is a pretty cantankerous topic that we've walked through here this last month, but I know it takes a lot for people to come out and be in public, be up here, come in and speak in public. So I want to thank everybody for their active participation in it. And so that's all.
Some?
I also enjoyed the night off Balsam Street event. So I think both venues are good. So probably we should alternate or have a couple here and one there. So there were a lot of people. So I took my grandson. We had good time. We played games. So that was fun to have kids around and have some games at that event. So The next one is I request the staff to come up with a date for the town hall meeting we promised for the waste management, so that issue is put to rest after that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we should be publishing that date here probably next week.
Thank you, sir.
It'll obviously be, out on social media and, so we make sure we have the optimum number of people that can attend.
So, Mr. Strand, if you would, please give my compliments to your staff. I went out there a few times. I stopped by like around 3:30, 4 o'clock, just to check in and see if anybody needed anything. And they were your staff was out there working hard on a Saturday, sweating. I mean, it was brutal. It was so hot, but they were out there setting it up, making sure the community had a good thing to enjoy. And the planning went well, all of the logistics. So my compliments to everybody on the staff. They worked hard. I was there at midnight when the Parks and Recs guys were going around picking up all the tables. Narissa, please say something to your folks. I think I saw you help carrying stuff, Travis, too. So thanks for being there. It was a great night. It really was. It was a wonderful night. I enjoyed it. I even went out to the silent DJ, put some headphones on for a little while, and danced with my daughter, which I don't dance that well. So I stayed in the shadows, but nevertheless it was a good time. And thank everybody for coming out. It was a contentious topic, and Skip brought up one point that is worth noting, that it is incumbent upon us to communicate to the public when we have something that comes up and the public wants to know about it. It is our duty to do what's best for this community. That period. There's no other discussion to it. And so that's what you saw up here tonight. We all did the best that we think we were supposed to be doing. With that, that's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
So let me start by reiterating what Kyle said about Skip's comments. And Skip, I think you hit it very, eloquently that, for the first time in a couple of years, we kind of missed the communication aspect of this one. We kind of collectively didn't express it up front in a clear way, and what happened was a lot of miscommunication, a lot of different feelings, and that's what was good. In all honesty, is at the end of the day, we had several conversations. We heard from the public, both here at Public, in our shops, at our offices, all around. We were able to each collectively make our own individual decision, which we were all able to work on. And at the end of the day, I think that what you saw was transparency and both positive and negative acting is exactly what it should be, which is not everyone's always going to agree and not everyone's always going to see it from the same lens. And what's great is that we can look through those lenses, have the conversation, and move on. We've done that. And I think that either way, it would have been still a good win for our community in terms of transparency and communication. And to Skip's end, we need to do a better job in the future with some of these. And I thank you for that comment. I want to reiterate, the team, the entire city staff that comes out to make Knob or Knopf incredible events, and what it's doing to our community is fantastic. And you know what it's doing more than anything else is it's creating a wonderful water cooler of were you there, and if you weren't, will you be at the next one? And that's so valuable because each time, to the compliment of the staff, they're changing the process. They don't follow the same roadmap with each event. And what they're doing is a very systematic process of figuring out what is the best possible event for this community. Is it at Kerr-McGee? Is it at our city center? Is it at Balsam Street? Is it somewhere else? Is it part of an annual event like Parade of 1,000 Flags? Should it be tied to something like that? Or maybe Trunk or Treat? Should it be tied to a different event? Should it be tied to a different holiday? We're experimenting with the community's participation, and I want to thank the community for coming out and participating, because the only way we can see if those are accurate or inaccurate is through your participation. So I want to reiterate what I saw, which is I saw city staff working hard for its citizens to make something nice. And I want to thank everyone who came out and all of the city staff who put in all those hours to put it together. Thank you on behalf of the larger community for bringing something like that to our community. That was probably the number one thing I heard over and over again is how much it's appreciated, the amount of work and effort that's being put into creating these events for our citizens. So tonight was entertaining. I think that it's great that we didn't all agree or disagree. We all found different ways to see our perspectives. I think it definitely was a process, and I think at the end of the day, I'm glad that everyone was given multiple opportunities to be heard. We've got a lot of things that we're moving forward positively on, and one of the things that I don't know if it's just my attitude or if it's just me, but I'm just trying to be very clear, is I tend to be a glass half full guy, not a glass half empty guy. And I can be afraid of a lot of things in my life, but I've always found that when I have fear, when fear controls my decisioning, I never make a good decision. Because I've always left some opportunity or something to create new opportunity behind in the process. And I really hope that a year from now, we can all be able to look back and see that we didn't see the fear realized. I can hope that. Will I be sure of it? I won't. Do I understand people saying we got to draw a line in the sand? I do. And I encourage you to get actively involved in advocacy. Reach out to your elected leaders. Continue your process of being advocates. I will gladly be the first one to give you contacts for Senator Grove, for Assemblyman Fong, for Congressman McCarthy, for Supervisor Peters, for anybody else. If you believe in something, advocate for it, but advocate it on the full scale. I mean, I agree with you. If you don't like that personal information is being scraped by cell phone apps, then work with your elected officials to advocate as hard as you'd like. I appreciate that. You have every right to. I'm an advocate for stuff all the time, whether it's part of this city or part of other roles. But at the end of the day, I'm glad to see us putting economic needs forward, and I appreciate that.
I got a comment when you're done.
Go right ahead.
So I would suggest maybe next time when we have something that's as important as what we've been discussing this last month, that we bring it out to the public earlier and not just drop it off in a, post committee. And that's part of what was going on here is the public wasn't informed of this earlier. And I think that would be a learning point off of this.
Okay, let me be clear, Scott. That's not a point I'm taking away from this.
Yeah.
I want to be real clear. These committees are there for a reason. We have them for a reason. They were developed for a reason. We keep them for a reason. Otherwise, we should get rid of them. They shouldn't even be there. I passed that to the staff. We've been talking about this for a long time. I had even talked with you guys, maybe not you, Skip, at some point about Placer AI. This was talked about.
Prior to the meeting that we had.
I have been talking, no, and I'm sorry, I know this is your time, but this is comments.
And the problem is it's a discussion. I will encourage you, I will gladly have a conversation with you. I will gladly have a conversation with you. You two can gladly have a conversation, but not three of us have a conversation and discussion. Otherwise, Martin will have my head.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And again, we are in closing comments, just so everybody remembers.
Mayor, it wasn't just the city that put on that event. There were some other people involved that need some kudos.
I just was trying to understand what was
Yes,
what
no
was
problem.
being handed to me is as we were talking about thanking the city staff, the bottom line is we want to make sure that we properly thanked all the other people that were involved in this. The Chamber of Commerce, RACVB, there was a Citizens Committee, Raw Media, Costco, Flightline Taproom. There were a bunch of people that came together, both businesses and our not-for-profit organizations that work within this community. Again, if we have left anybody off the list, just understand that we absolutely appreciate and know the amount of effort and sweat and toil that you're putting into it, and we greatly appreciate it. Since we've already reached that point and I'm going to go pick up a kid from school, I'm going to say my last comment is just very simple. My thoughts and prayers go out to everyone in Hawaii. Wildfires are devastating. We saw it here in California several years ago. My hopes and prayers go out to all of them. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful evening.